Welcome, class, to Lesson 7-1. Today, strong mathematicians can compare non-unit fractions. With that, you can go to your notebook, your pencil, and write down today's date and the name of the lesson, and let's get started. You do not have to write this one down, so you look very familiar to last section. So we're still talking about unit fractions. Just remember, a unit fraction represents one equal part of a whole. A unit fraction has a numerator of 1, and the unit fraction is 1d, is one of the d equal parts. So what does that mean? The fraction bar below is divided into 6 equal parts, or 6. So each part is one of 6 equal parts, or 1/6. Yeah, just change that. Maybe feel a little better if I make this of right now. There you go. So just a little review of that. Hopefully it hasn't been like that the whole time. Otherwise, I'm really curious. Several more terms that we need to know. A fraction is the sum of unit fractions. The fraction n, numerator d, is the sum of n copies of 1d. Remember, the numerator is on top, denominator is on the bottom. Numerator tells us how many unit fractions are in the fraction, and d tells me the number of equal parts in the whole. So it's a nice review of those vocabulary words, keep them fresh in our mind as we continue through this unit. And now the big thing right now, when comparing fractions, if the numerators are the same, so the numerators are the same, notice we have a 5 here and a 5 here, we are going to look at the denominator. And whichever number is the smallest is the biggest fraction. So notice smallest, bigger fraction, which might seem weird because in whole numbers, the bigger the number, the bigger it is. But in fractions, the smaller the denominator, the bigger the size of the piece. And if we have the same amount of pieces like we have right here, 7 is smaller, that means 5/7 is actually bigger than 5/9. So you write down that top part right now. If you need to pause the video, you can do that. And now we're talking about the bottom part, right? It says if the denominators are the same, so now the denominators are the same, we have to look at the numerator. And whichever is the biggest number is the bigger fraction. This one's a little more straightforward because why? The size of the pieces are actually the same. They're both 6 here. So if this is a 6 and this is a 6, well, they're the same size, which means would I rather have 3 or would I rather have 5? Well, if I want more, I would like to have 5/6. So if the denominators are the same, you look to see which numerator is bigger, and that is the biggest one. So you're going to pause, write these notes down so you can have them to help you out along with the examples, because this is going to be pretty much the premise of this lesson. So let's dive right in right now to write these statements, right, either greater than or less than to make each of the statements true. So if you want to go for it right now, you can pause the video even, I think, and try to answer these before I do and I talk about them, and we'll see how well you did. If we look at the first one right now, we see that our denominator is the same. If our denominator is the same size, I mean the same number of pieces, we look at the numerator to see which one's bigger. We see that 3 is bigger than 2. So 3/4 is greater than 2/4. And our next problem, we have our numerator is the same. So if our numerator is the same, we have to go to our denominator, and we look at whatever one is the smallest is actually going to be the bigger one. Because why? The less pieces you have, the bigger the piece of what you have. So 3/6 is greater than 3/8. If we look again, our denominators are the same, which means we look at the number of pieces. We know 7 is bigger than 4. So therefore, 4/9 is less than 7/9. And we continue on. I got a nice little pattern going here. Numerators are the same, so you need to look at the denominators. We know that the smaller the denominator, the bigger the piece, which would mean 2/5 is less than 2/3. And here we got our denominators are the same. So look at our numerators. We know 5/7 is greater than 1/7, or as I have it written, 1/7 is less than 5/7. And last but not least, we got a numerators that are the same. So we can find denominators. Whichever one's the smaller one is the bigger one, which means 4/5 is greater than 4/7. So hopefully you can make through these examples feeling confident about comparing non-unit fractions that have either the same numerator or the same denominator. Here's kind of a word problem. Lewis had a box of hockey cards. He kept 5/8 of them and gave 3/8 of the cards to Nate, who had more of the cards. Explain. So if we have this right now, we'll have Lewis right here, and he had 5/8. And we have Nate, who had 3/8. So in our explanation part, we would just kind of put this in a number sentence. Well, we know that if the denominators are the same, then we look at who has more numerators, which would mean Lewis would have more. So this would be my explanation, but my answer would be Lewis has more hockey cards. So I've answered my question right there, and I've showed my work. So there's my answer right here, and my work would be this one right there. So you can pause the video for this example to help you in your work. And now, last but not least, we'll write the fractions 10/12, 5/12, and 7/12 in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to write all these fractions out. I got 10/12, and I'm going to give it a pause. And I have 5/12, and I have 7/12. So right now, if I look at these, I want to go, and the biggest thing to remember with these is to remember, what do I have to go? I have to go from least to greatest. So I got to go from the smallest to the biggest. So since all of my denominators are 12, the least would have the smallest numerator, which means I can move my 5/12 right here. Let's see, then I would have to move my 10/12 over and bring my 7/12 right there. And now I would have them written from least to greatest. So you can pause the video right now. You can write this example, but also focusing on, I just moved that too, on the fact that these are least to greatest. Important to read. How do you have to put them in order? All right, now it's your turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down these statements to make them true using less than or greater than. I would also do to circle the parts of, was it the numerators the same or the denominator the same, so you'd see how you're using that strategy to help you. Here's a word problem. Tessa listed the birds that visited her bird feeder Friday. She said that 2/5 were cardinals and 2/6 were blue jays. Did more cardinals or blue jays visit the bird feeder? Explain. And last but not least, write the fractions 7/10, 9/10, and 3/10 in order from least to greatest. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to write them down or share them out. Also, if there's any other strategies that you use to help you, make sure you include those as well. And once again, thank you very much for a great lesson.